Imagine stepping into a world where the familiar suddenly feels unfamiliar, where reality twists in unsettling ways, and where every story forces us to confront the hidden fears, prejudices, and moral dilemmas lurking beneath the surface of society. This is the Twilight Zone, a groundbreaking television series that blurred the line between science fiction, horror, and psychological drama, leaving an indelible mark on the history of storytelling. Created by the visionary Rod Serling, The Twilight Zone was more than just a collection of eerie tales. It was a mirror held up to society, reflecting its flaws, anxieties, and contradictions. Serling, a decorated World War II veteran turned television writer, used the show as a platform to challenge authority, question the status quo, and expose the hypocrisy of the world around him. At a time when television was largely controlled by networks hesitant to tackle controversial topics, Serling found a way to discuss racism, war, censorship, and existential dread, disguised as gripping science fiction and fantasy. But why did The Twilight Zone strike such a deep chord with audiences? What made its storytelling so revolutionary that it still resonates today, more than 6 decades after its debut? The answer lies in Serling's fearless approach to storytelling. He refused to be constrained by the limitations of mainstream television, crafting narratives that were unsettling, thought-provoking, and often laced with irony. The show's signature twist endings left viewers haunted, forcing them to question their own assumptions about human nature, fate, and morality. From its inception, The Twilight Zone was more than just entertainment. It was a cultural statement. It dared to ask the difficult questions. What happens when power goes unchecked? How does prejudice destroy lives? What does it mean to be human in an increasingly dehumanized world? Through its unforgettable episodes, from Eye of the Beholder to Time Enough at Last, the series cemented itself as one of the most influential television programs of all time. In this deep dive, we will explore the origins of the Twilight Zone, the struggles and censorship battles Serling faced, the groundbreaking themes woven into its episodes, and the lasting impact it has had on television, film, and popular culture. Whether you're a longtime fan or a newcomer to this classic anthology, prepare to step into the unknown, a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. Welcome to the Twilight Zone. Rod Serling was not just a writer. He was a revolutionary force in television, a man who refused to let the constraints of the industry silence his voice. Born on December 25, 1924, in Syracuse, New York, Serling's fascination with storytelling began at a young age, but it was his experiences in World War II that truly shaped his worldview. As a paratrooper in the Pacific Theater, he witnessed firsthand the horrors of war, losing close friends and enduring the psychological toll of combat. These experiences instilled in him a profound sense of justice and a moral obligation to expose societal wrongs. Returning from the war, Serling enrolled at Antioch College in Ohio, where he studied literature and broadcasting. He quickly developed a talent for writing radio plays and teleplays, and after graduating, he set his sights on the growing medium of television. However, the industry of the 1950s was tightly controlled by networks and sponsors who dictated content, avoiding anything remotely controversial. Writers were expected to produce safe, commercial-friendly stories that did not question authority or challenge societal norms. Serling, however, was unwilling to compromise his artistic integrity. He wanted to address real issues: racism, war, censorship, and the dangers of unchecked power. His big break came in 1955 with the teleplay Patterns, a gripping drama about corporate corruption and the moral dilemmas of modern capitalism. The script was sharp, unflinching, and brutally honest, a rare quality in network television at the time. When Patterns aired on Kraft Television Theater, it received widespread acclaim, cementing Serling's reputation as a bold and fearless writer. The success of the teleplay opened doors for him, but the struggle against censorship continued. His next major teleplay, Requiem for a Heavyweight, 1956, a poignant story about an aging boxer, also received critical acclaim but faced network interference. Serling grew increasingly frustrated. He realized that if he wanted complete creative control, he needed to find a way to outsmart the censors. That realization led to the birth of the Twilight Zone, By using science fiction and fantasy as a vehicle for social commentary, Sorling found a way to tackle controversial issues without direct interference. He pitched the concept to CBS, an anthology series that would blend speculative fiction with social allegory, where each episode would be a standalone story exploring themes of prejudice, totalitarianism, war, and existential dread. CBS took a chance on Sorling's vision, and on October 2nd, 1959, The Twilight Zone premiered. The show was unlike anything television audiences had seen before, thought-provoking, unsettling, and often laced with irony. As both the creator and narrator, Sorling became the face of the series, delivering his signature monologues that set the stage for each episode. His distinct voice and presence added an air of mystery and intellect to the show, reinforcing its status as a groundbreaking work of television. Sorling had done what once seemed impossible. He had outwitted the censors, revolutionized television, and left behind a legacy that would endure for generations. The Twilight Zone was more than just entertainment. It was a mirror held up to society, forcing viewers to confront the world around them in ways they never had before. By the late 1950s, Rod Sorling had established himself as a masterful storyteller, but he was growing increasingly frustrated with the limitations imposed by television executives and corporate sponsors. Every attempt to tackle meaningful social issues, whether it be racism, war, or authoritarianism, was met with pushback. Sorling realized that if he wanted to speak the truth, he needed to disguise it. Thus, the idea for The Twilight Zone was born, a science fiction anthology series where serious themes could be explored through the lens of fantasy and the surreal. When The Twilight Zone debuted on October 2nd, 1959, on CBS, it immediately stood out from anything else on television. Unlike standard shows of the era, which followed predictable formulas, The Twilight Zone was designed to be unpredictable. Each episode was a standalone story, free from the constraints of a recurring cast or ongoing plotlines. This allowed Sorling to experiment with different genres, science fiction, horror, fantasy, and psychological drama, all while delivering sharp social commentary. At first glance, the show appeared to be simple entertainment, but beneath its eerie music and strange twists lay profound critiques of society. Sorling's brilliance was in how he cloaked controversial topics in allegory. An episode about a dystopian society that controlled people's thoughts was, in reality, a veiled critique of McCarthyism. A story about a town succumbing to mass hysteria over alien invasions was really about Cold War paranoia. By presenting these narratives as fiction, Sorling bypassed censorship and forced audiences to confront their fears, prejudices, and moral dilemmas without feeling directly attacked. The first season introduced viewers to the unique storytelling that would define the series. The debut episode, Where Is Everybody?, followed a man wandering through an empty town, slowly unraveling under the weight of his solitude. The story played on themes of isolation and the human need for connection, timeless concerns that resonated deeply. However, it was The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street that truly demonstrated the show's power. The episode depicted an ordinary suburban neighborhood that descends into chaos when its residents begin to suspect that one of them is an alien in disguise. Fueled by paranoia and fear, they turn on each other, revealing the fragility of trust within a community. The episode was a thinly veiled reflection of Cold War-era suspicion, where accusations and fear-mongering tore people apart. The Twilight Zone quickly built a dedicated following. Viewers were captivated by its unsettling narratives and the way it forced them to question their own beliefs. The show's eerie atmosphere, unpredictable twists, and philosophical undertones set it apart from anything that had come before. Sorling, serving as the show's narrator, became the face of the series, delivering his now iconic introductions and conclusions that framed each episode like a cautionary fable. With The Twilight Zone, Sorling not only revolutionized television, but also redefined what science fiction could achieve. He proved that genre storytelling could be intelligent, provocative, and deeply human. The success of the first season solidified the show's reputation, paving the way for future creators to explore complex themes through speculative fiction. Even decades later, its impact remains undeniable, influencing generations of filmmakers, writers, and audiences who continue to find meaning in its haunting and timeless tales. As the Twilight Zone gained popularity, it also became a lightning rod for controversy. Rod Serling had set out to use television as a tool for social commentary, but not everyone was receptive to his approach. The networks, beholden to sponsors and wary of backlash, often sought to tone down his most provocative ideas. Despite these challenges, Serling refused to compromise his vision, using allegory and metaphor to explore themes that mainstream television typically avoided. One of the most controversial episodes in the series' history was The Encounter. Airing in 1964, this episode told the story of a confrontation between a World War II veteran and a Japanese-American man. The narrative explored themes of guilt, racism, and historical trauma, but it did so in a way that many found problematic. Critics and viewers alike were troubled by its handling of racial stereotypes, particularly its suggestion that the Japanese-American character's father had betrayed his country during the war. The backlash was swift, and CBS quickly pulled the episode from syndication. It remained largely unseen for decades, highlighting the fine line Serling had to walk between storytelling and societal sensitivities. Another episode that stirred controversy was I Am the Night, Color Me Black. This deeply symbolic episode centered around a man awaiting execution in a small town that was mysteriously shrouded in darkness. As the narrative unfolded, it became clear that the darkness was a manifestation of hatred, intolerance, and racial prejudice. The episode aired in 1964 during the height of the civil rights movement, making its themes all the more striking. While many praised Serling's willingness to address racism so directly, others found the episode too blunt and unsettling. It was a rare instance where the Twilight Zone abandoned its usual allegorical approach in favor of direct, unfiltered social critique. Censorship was an ongoing battle for Serling. Throughout the show's run, network executives and advertisers often pressured him to soften his scripts or avoid certain themes altogether. They worried that episodes touching on racial injustice, war, or political corruption would alienate viewers and sponsors. In some cases, entire scripts had to be reworked, with Serling reluctantly making changes to appease the censors. However, he found ways to push back. By embedding his messages within science fiction and fantasy, he managed to bypass many of the restrictions imposed on him. For example, an episode about totalitarianism or governmental oppression might be framed as a futuristic dystopia rather than a direct critique of contemporary politics. A story about segregation might take place on an alien planet rather than in the American South. These creative decisions allowed Serling to maintain the integrity of his storytelling while skirting overt censorship. Despite the obstacles he faced, Serling remained steadfast in his belief that television should do more than entertain. It should challenge, provoke, and enlighten. The Twilight Zone became a platform where difficult conversations could unfold under the guise of fiction. And while some episodes were deemed too controversial for their time, they have since been recognized as some of the most powerful and thought-provoking stories ever told on television. Serling's battles with censorship ultimately reinforced the very themes he sought to explore: the dangers of conformity, the suppression of free thought, and the consequences of a society unwilling to confront its own flaws. The Twilight Zone was never just about bizarre twists and eerie storytelling. It was a mirror held up to the world, reflecting its deepest fears and greatest moral dilemmas. Despite the numerous battles with censorship and the challenges of navigating network restrictions, The Twilight Zone emerged as one of the most influential television series of all time. From its debut in 1959 to its final episode in 1964, the show captivated audiences, leaving an indelible mark on both the entertainment industry and popular culture. It wasn't just a science fiction anthology. It was a reflection of society's deepest fears, moral dilemmas, and existential questions. The series was widely recognized for its brilliance, earning multiple Emmy Awards, including 2 for Rod Serling's writing. Critics hailed it as groundbreaking, praising its ability to blend thought-provoking narratives with gripping storytelling. What set The Twilight Zone apart from other shows of its time was its refusal to shy away from difficult topics. It tackled issues of war, prejudice, government control, and human nature in a way that mainstream television had rarely dared to do before. Beyond its immediate success, The Twilight Zone had a profound impact on future generations of storytellers. The show's structure, standalone episodes featuring self-contained, unpredictable narratives, became a blueprint for many later anthology series. Modern shows like Black Mirror and American Horror Story owe much to the Twilight Zone's legacy, using horror and science fiction as vehicles to explore contemporary societal anxieties. Even episodic dramas and thrillers have drawn inspiration from its themes and storytelling techniques. One of the show's most enduring legacies is its ability to remain relevant across generations. Many of the fears it explored, government surveillance, the dangers of blind conformity, artificial intelligence, and human greed, are just as pressing today as they were in the 1960s. Episodes like The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street serve as timeless allegories for mass hysteria and paranoia, while stories such as Eye of the Beholder continue to challenge society's beauty standards and perceptions of normalcy. The fact that the Twilight Zone is still referenced in discussions about modern technology, ethics, and politics is a testament to its lasting significance. In addition to its influence on storytelling, the Twilight Zone left an unmistakable imprint on pop culture. The show's haunting theme music, composed by Marius Constant, is instantly recognizable, often used as shorthand for anything eerie or surreal. Sorling's opening and closing narrations, with their signature cadence and philosophical musings, have been endlessly parodied and imitated. References to the Twilight Zone can be found in movies, TV shows, books, music, and even commercials, evidence that its themes and imagery have seeped into the collective consciousness. The series also paved the way for anthology storytelling in cinema. Films like The Twilight Zone, the movie, 1983, sought to recapture the magic of the original show by adapting some of its most famous episodes for the big screen. While the movie itself received mixed reviews, it reaffirmed the cultural significance of the Twilight Zone and introduced its themes to a new generation of viewers. Ultimately, the Twilight Zone was more than just a television show. It was a revolutionary force in storytelling. It challenged the boundaries of what television could be, proving that the medium was capable of more than just entertainment. It could be a vehicle for social change, introspection, and philosophical exploration. Rod Serling's vision continues to inspire, reminding us that great storytelling is not just about shock value or clever twists. It's about holding up a mirror to the world and making us question what we see. Rod Serling's influence on television and storytelling extends far beyond the Twilight Zone. He revolutionized the medium, proving that television could be more than just a source of entertainment. It could be a powerful tool for social critique, moral reflection, and intellectual engagement. By using science fiction and fantasy as vehicles to address pressing social issues, Serling reshaped the way stories were told, challenging both audiences and networks to think beyond conventional narratives. His ability to blend realism with the surreal set a new standard for television writing. Serling's scripts tackled racism, war, totalitarianism, and human nature with an honesty that was rare for the time. His refusal to water down controversial themes, even in the face of censorship, showed an unwavering commitment to storytelling with substance. He was a writer who believed that television had the power to change minds, and he dedicated his career to ensuring that his work reflected deeper truths about society. Serling's legacy is most apparent in the way contemporary television continues to push boundaries. Many modern writers and directors cite him as a major influence, acknowledging that his work paved the way for shows like Black Mirror, The X-Files, and Stranger Things. These series, much like The Twilight Zone, use speculative fiction to examine modern anxieties, ethical dilemmas, and the consequences of human actions. Serling's narrative techniques, unexpected twists, moral quandaries, and thought-provoking conclusions are now hallmarks of modern storytelling. Beyond television, his impact can be seen in literature, cinema, and even philosophy. His approach to storytelling has been studied in academic settings, with scholars analyzing how the Twilight Zone used allegory to address contemporary fears and injustices. His scripts remain relevant because they tap into universal human concerns: fear of the unknown, the struggle for identity, the dangers of unchecked power that persist regardless of time or place. Serling's influence is also evident in the continued popularity of the Twilight Zone. The series has been revived multiple times, including reboots in the 1980s, 2002, and most recently in 2019, with Jordan Peele serving as the host and executive producer. Each iteration of the show sought to recapture Sorling's spirit of storytelling, using speculative fiction to challenge audiences and provoke meaningful discussions. Even outside of official reboots, countless TV episodes and films have borrowed Sorling's signature twist endings and moral ambiguity. But perhaps Sorling's greatest legacy is his unwavering commitment to authenticity and integrity in storytelling. He never shied away from difficult topics, even when it cost him professionally. His battles with network censorship, his willingness to challenge authority, and his insistence on writing stories that mattered serve as a guiding principle for many creators today. His belief that television could be a force for change continues to inspire generations of writers, directors, and producers. Rod Serling once said, "I think the best writing is never done in isolation, but in the context of an environment of necessity." He understood that the best stories are those that reflect the world around us, forcing us to confront our fears, question our beliefs, and consider alternative perspectives. His work reminds us that storytelling is not just about entertainment. It is about provoking thought, inspiring change, and ultimately, holding up a mirror to society. Though Serling passed away in 1975, his voice and vision endure. Every time an audience watches an episode of The Twilight Zone, reads a story inspired by his work, or encounters a twist ending that makes them reconsider everything they thought they knew, they are experiencing a piece of his legacy. He was more than just a writer. He was a visionary, a provocateur, and a relentless advocate for truth in storytelling. Decades after its original run, The Twilight Zone remains as relevant as ever, a testament to Rod Serling's visionary storytelling. His ability to use speculative fiction as a vehicle for exploring the human condition continues to inspire generations of writers, filmmakers, and audiences. In an era where mainstream entertainment often prioritizes spectacle over substance, The Twilight Zone stands as a reminder that storytelling can be both thought-provoking and entertaining. The genius of The Twilight Zone lies in its timeless themes: fear, power, morality, prejudice, and the unknown. These are issues that have persisted throughout history, manifesting in different forms across different eras. Whether addressing Cold War paranoia, the dangers of totalitarianism, or the fragility of human nature, the show provided audiences with narratives that were not only engaging, but also deeply reflective of society's anxieties. One of the reasons The Twilight Zone remains so impactful is its ability to make audiences uncomfortable in the best possible way. The show forced viewers to confront their biases, fears, and ethical dilemmas through allegorical storytelling. Episodes like The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street explored mob mentality and suspicion, mirroring real-world hysteria and scapegoating. Eye of the Beholder challenged societal beauty standards, emphasizing the arbitrary nature of cultural norms. These stories are just as relevant today as we continue to grapple with prejudice, misinformation, and the consequences of mass panic. In recent years, the themes of The Twilight Zone have found new life in modern television. Shows like Black Mirror have taken Serling's format and applied it to the digital age, examining how technology shapes our morality and relationships. Similarly, American Horror Story and The X-Files owe a great deal to Serling's ability to blend psychological tension with supernatural elements, using horror and science fiction as lenses to explore human nature. Recognizing the show's lasting influence, Jordan Peele spearheaded a 2019 reboot of The Twilight Zone. As a filmmaker known for blending horror with social commentary, Get Out, Us, Peele was an ideal successor to Serling's legacy. His reboot tackled contemporary issues such as systemic racism, media manipulation, and identity struggles while maintaining the eerie, thought-provoking essence of the original series. While the new version received mixed reviews, it reinforced the idea that The Twilight Zone remains a crucial cultural touchstone, capable of evolving with the times. Beyond television, The Twilight Zone continues to shape literature, film, and philosophical discussions. The series' influence can be seen in dystopian novels, existential dramas, and even real-world political discourse. Its signature twist endings and moral dilemmas have become a storytelling template, proving that Serling's blueprint for engaging audiences through critical thought is still widely relevant. More than just a television show, The Twilight Zone represents a mindset, a willingness to question reality, challenge authority, and confront the unknown. Sorling's work reminds us that the world is never as simple as it seems, and that true understanding comes from looking beyond the surface. His stories continue to serve as cautionary tales, encouraging us to think deeply about our choices, our beliefs, and our collective future. As long as humanity continues to wrestle with ethical dilemmas, societal fears, and existential uncertainties, the Twilight Zone will endure. Whether through reruns, reboots, or spiritual successors, its core message remains unchanged. The truth is often unsettling. The future is unpredictable, and sometimes, the most important stories are the ones that make us uncomfortable. The Twilight Zone is more than just a television show. It is a cultural phenomenon that has stood the test of time. Rod Serling's masterful storytelling and fearless exploration of controversial themes transformed the medium of television into a platform for social critique. Through allegory and science fiction, he invited audiences to reflect on their fears, prejudices, and the moral complexities of the world around them. The show's ability to seamlessly blend the extraordinary with the familiar made it an unforgettable experience. Whether tackling Cold War paranoia, the dangers of conformity, or the fragility of human nature, the Twilight Zone forced viewers to question their assumptions and engage with deeper societal issues. Its themes, fear, justice, identity, and power, are timeless, ensuring that its messages remain relevant across generations. Rod Serling's legacy is one of bold creativity and unrelenting truth-telling. His work paved the way for future storytellers, proving that television could be more than just entertainment. It could be a means of awakening audiences to uncomfortable realities and inspiring change. Today, we see echoes of the Twilight Zone in modern storytelling, from thought-provoking series like Black Mirror to films that challenge societal norms. As we continue to navigate an ever-changing world filled with new technologies, political upheavals, and ethical dilemmas, the lessons of the Twilight Zone remain strikingly pertinent. It reminds us that fear can be manipulated, truth can be distorted, and our perception of reality is often fragile. More importantly, it challenges us to confront these truths with courage and critical thought. So, the next time you step into a story that unsettles you, that forces you to see the world differently, remember the legacy of the Twilight Zone. It is a reminder that the most powerful narratives are the ones that push us beyond our comfort zones and into the unknown, because sometimes that is where the greatest revelations lie.